Testing. JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. April 4th, 2024. Sorry about that. Just going to be really quick, talk about the markets. We have the big jobs report tomorrow. Talk about some of the trades I took on, updates on some of the other trades, and go from there. But first, I'll start with the market. If you had tuned in Tuesday was very a rough session. So Monday we had a little sell-off. The S&P was down 0.2% or closed down 0.2%. Everybody on FinTwit and all the headlines say, oh, here we go. Here comes the big, long-awaited crash. We told you so over the weekend. Those charts were all pointing to a big sell-off. Blah, blah, blah. Yields were rising. The USDollar was rising. Oil was rising. I call that the triple-headed monster. And we had follow-through on Tuesday. So big setup. You would think if there was a chance for the bears to really start to take control, they would have done so, and that didn't happen. And then yesterday we had Fed Chair Powell talk at Stanford. Really didn't do anything much in the way of change. His commentary wasn't more dovish or more hawkish, just kind of standard pat on what he's been saying, that when conditions are right, they'll look to cut rates. It could happen later in the year. With those comments, at the time, 61.8% probability of a rate cut in June. That's what the market's pricing in. The Fibonacci, anybody who trades using those, that's not my cup of tea. I don't use that, but 61.8, and then it's dropped to 58% now after Powell's comments yesterday. Still pretty good odds, and then you start looking to July. It looks like it's still about a 50% probability that there'll be at least one rate cut, and then a 25% probability it might be two rate cuts. So odds are there's going to be something by July. If he came out hawkish and it starts getting pushed into the fall, then I think there'll be some concern and some worry. But I'll continue to look for moves in the triple-headed monster. So I think it's important that yields at least find some footing, and they're actually hanging in tough today. You take a look at oil. It's a similar story. You don't want to see oil go too nuts. And then the US dollar. All three of those things were part of the big pullback in the fall. So as long as we stand pat there, I think we'll be fine. Turnaround here. Tomorrow's jobs report can't come in too hot, too cold. Expectations for 200,000 jobs created, and the unemployment rate staying steady at 3.9%. So if we stay kind of in line there, I think that bodes well. Headlines today too. I think there's some data or some report research came out. This month, March, was the biggest last month was the biggest in regards to layoffs and job cuts since the start of 2023. Over 90,000 jobs were cut in March. That goes, the last time we've had a number that high was back in January 2023 when it was 100,000. And you hate to see bad numbers, right? I would talk about it in the fall on the rants that it's almost like the Fed was trying to push the economy into a recession. That was in order to get rid of the inflation. It's like bad news was good news, because if people are out of work, that means supply demand is going to work itself out, inflation is going to come down, things like that. But thankfully we haven't got, things came a little bit under control. We're not in that dire straits yet, but that 90K job cuts in March probably bodes well for not a weaker than expected jobs number, but I don't think it's going to be a surprise to the upside, which I think will be good for markets. So that's the markets. Also, 27 days till the next Fed meeting in May. Pretty much a zero probability that they're going to do anything. No rate cut, no rate hike, any of that stuff, unless there's extremely surprising inflation data. CPI data comes out April 10th in the morning, a week from yesterday. So that'll be another really, really important data piece as we go forward. And I think pretty much all the data is going to be important in the next 2 months, because the market, I think, it's kind of coiled, right? It's waiting for that rate cut, and I think once we get confirmation, it could be the next leg to the upside. So that's that. That's the Fed. That's the markets. Chop around here. Maybe earnings next week could also provide a catalyst. Friday is the start of the Q1 earnings season with the banks, J.P. Morgan, Wells Fargo, and I think Citigroup reports Friday. So that's the markets. I added some trades today. First will be Sea Ltd, right? So if you've been part of the community for a while, back in 2020, actually it was 2019, I was doing my research for my top 5 stocks for 2020, and Sea Ltd came to my attention. And doing the research, I used comparisons that it was what Baidu looked like to me in 2008. SE Limited looked like the Baidu of Western Asia, Eastern Asia, what do you want to call it? Indonesia, Korea, all Malaysia, that whole area, Pangea, whatever you want to call it. That's what it looked like to me. So it was $40 at the time. They have three major components of their business: a digital payment side, a commerce side, e-commerce side, almost like Amazon, and then they have a gaming side, similar to NetEase. So crazy revenues, was doing great. The stock went from $40 at the start of 2020 when I made it my top 5 stock of 2020, all the way up to, it closed 2020 at $193. So you're talking, whatever was that, 47%, no, 400%, 50%, 500% gain. I'll have to pull up the exact number. And SPY's pulling here down to 521. VKT, sorry folks, just that stuff. Yeah, just melting back. VKTX is melting back to where it was to start the week. So all the way up to 193. So that was one of my top 5 stocks. Then in 2021, the year started, it hit $363 by the middle of 2021. So it went from 40, and then 18 months later was $363, and a huge market cap. This is not a small company. It might have been up to over 100 billion market valuation, probably higher than that. But it's since come down. Growth has slowed a little bit. You had COVID impacted a lot of their business, and so here it is. It's been down at these levels. It was trading in the 30s pretty much in February, and has since started to rally. And it's one of those names that it's a $28 billion company now, has $8 billion in cash, and it seems like it's on the cusp of maybe a turnaround. So the last earnings report, which was in March, a great report, and I think it's the start of the next leg to the upside. So I've been watching it the last couple of weeks, not really on the watch list, but pulling up every time I pull up the charts. And then this morning I looked, I said, wow, this has been bouncing at the 5250 handle for about 5 sessions now. And it looks like if it starts to get some life, some buyers, it'll take off. Sure enough, what does it do? It runs up right after the open from the get-go. So it was very hard to get some decent risk-reward strikes. Once it started to find support around 55, I went and got the calls, and 2 minutes later, it spikes to $56. Really like the name. I may look to get some more strikes for a move into the 60s and possibly 70 in the coming month or two. But I think it's a great story. I try not to use analogies to compare stocks, individual stocks, because Baidu's not an e-commerce name, right? But when I look at something that's disrupted an area that's not in the United States, Baidu is a great example of a company that they took search by storm. They were so powerful they kept Google out of China. Those were many, many years ago. But I'm not saying Sea Ltd, SE is the same, but I see a same opportunity where they're dominant in their space and they'll continue to grow, fundamentally sound, tons of cash, and so on and so forth. So that's Sea Ltd. So hopefully you can understand why I added some of those calls finally this morning, and I'll probably look for some more strikes there. Let's see here. Sorry about that, folks. I'm trying to pull up some of the other things here. NNOX. So if you know the story about NNOX, I guess you pronounce it, it's a small Israeli company. I talked about it yesterday. SPY keeps melting here. Why does it do this when I get on? Why I'm on the audio? Couldn't do this before. Oh boy. So it does MRIs. It has MRI. MRI machines. It has a subsidiary, NNOX AI, I believe it's called. And it's a software that actually analyzes MRIs to help physicians and doctors be able to bring some things to the doctor's attention that they might not already see, and especially when it comes to fatty liver. So the NASH, VKTX, which has a NASH drug, MDGL. So I mean, that was 1 in 4 citizens in the U.S. possibly are afflicted with that. So I just think it's a great opportunity. It's something that can disrupt the industry. And, another name, it's got $90 million in cash. It's $600 million market cap. NVIDIA has that 400,000 stake in the company, but some of that reason is because NNOX did an acquisition of a company that NVIDIA already had a stake in. So whether incidental or not, NVIDIA still has that stake and still holding it. So the fact that now they're starting to really get into the AI side of things, I think it continues to go. Decent short interest, like I said yesterday. There's been short pieces on the name because I think it's very hard to understand. But I mean, they got FDA approval, right? I think in February for their software. It's a big deal, and it's in use in some offices in the U.S. So they're still in the stages of rolling it out. And when you take technology, medicine, drugs, SPY's going to break 520 here. What am I missing? Oh boy. It just went from 522 to 520 in a matter, well, actually 523 at 140, and now it's 210. And so within a half hour, we just dropped. Well, all the gains are almost gone on the S&P. Anyway, so so that's that on NNOX. It takes a while for those things to get rolled out. So you don't just get approval from the FDA and then all of a sudden you're in every doctor's office or every MRI office in the country. It's just not how it works. You have to have salespeople. You have to talk about your product, show the benefits, be able to land it, then sign a contract. There's all these things that go into it. That it's just not, you don't just snap your fingers after you get approval and the revenues just start coming in. So very easy to poke holes in the name that's still on the cusp of disrupting the industry and the sector. And that's why I think it trades down here. So I think there's an opportunity for trade up near $15 in the coming weeks. If not higher, I'll continue to look for opportunities to play for upside. Got the April strikes yesterday, not this afternoon, right before noontime. I went and got some May strikes, and within 2 seconds of getting them, the stock jumped like 25 cents. So I think sometimes, and I've been doing this a long time, people used to ask, do they have your account? Like, does someone know your account? Because sometimes there still happens sometimes. I would do a trade, and then a second later, there would be, 100, 500 option contracts go through, and I wouldn't have posted it. It wasn't quick enough. So someone had to probably have line of sight to it. That doesn't happen as prevalent as it used to, but it still does. And then I used to have issues where I'd put an order in and I'd put it at the ask, and all of a sudden the ask disappears on the contract. So then I pull it back. Someone gets filled. Then I put an order in at the higher ask. I get filled on that, and then the ask goes back to where I had it before. So it's like they play these games, which is kind of annoying. It just adds more, risk to the options, right? It's already tough enough as it is. Just adds just another layer of difficulty to getting a good entry and exit. But NNOX did that. So did SE when I got the calls today. Hopefully that's not a trend. So those are that's what I added today. Lucky ACB. ACB and CGC were both gapping. Well, after hours were running still. CGC went over 11. ACB was in the high 7s. And then this morning, they both dipped. ACB went down to 650. And then in a matter of about 45 minutes, it went from 650 all the way up to 850. I did the math. It was a 31% reversal, 31% gain. So if the stock had opened at 6 feet, it was a 31% gain in a matter of 35 minutes. It's impressive. But again, it speaks to what I've been saying in regards to the volatility in the cannabis names. They're very tough trades because you can be holding a huge profit, and then 5 minutes later it can be gone because it dips 50 cents or $1, or which it did. So you take a look at ACB today. The high is 888, and right now it's trading at 724. That's a pretty large swing for a stock trading under $10, right? So that's more than 20% from the highs. So the stock is already in, technically speaking, a correction, right? Or a bear market. Actually, it's a bear market. 10% is a correction, 20% is a bear market. So at 11:30, hit 888. Here it is. You have almost 3 hours later, and it's down here at 725. It's already in a bear market. So it makes it very tough to hold. So that's why I continue to lock profits on the way up. I got some more of the 7 strikes out for over 10 bags. And I'll probably just hold the rest of those for now. And, if it pulls back more, I'll add some. If not, I'll just hold the rest of those 10s. Same with CGC. Already locked in a lot of the strikes. Still have a couple of the 10s left. Still have the May 15s. I'll just hold those for now. And if it really starts to gain some steam, maybe I'll add some higher strikes. But I think 17, 18 on CGC. ACB has made up some ground here. Maybe that goes to 15, 13 probably. So that's kind of what I'm looking at on those names. Let's see. I'm not really going to talk too much about RILY. The stock went all the way up to 24.42, then all the way down to 21.84 at the end of the day. I guess, did a short speak at the Sohn conference? I don't know. I really don't care. SPY's at 519 now. Come on. We need some Hodor. I say hero zero on RILY because could there be issues with the company? Sure. I remember if anybody followed HLF back in the day with a big Ackman short, right? Bill Ackman's very well-spoken and able to come across in an intelligent way. And they, said, no, it's a pyramid scheme. It's going to get shut down by the FTC. The stock's going to zero. And he shorted billions of dollars worth, and would just go on TV and just bash the stock incessantly, all the conferences and everything. And then years later, it never came to fruition. He lost a lot of money, and the stock went much higher. There were issues with the company. There was no doubt about it. I think they got some fines, but the company still lived on. And so I use that example because I think Riley's a similar situation. Even if there's improprieties in the filings, they did some shady stuff or things like that, I still think, even if there's improprieties in their filings when they come out, or some shady business, or there's a SEC inquiry that maybe they receive one, they have to put that in the filing. Even that's in there, I still think it's not going to zero. It's not insolvent. Like I said yesterday, they're still hiring people. Why would they? If they're at the point where they think they're on the brink of bankruptcy, you would think it probably makes sense to start cutting costs, right? Their job, especially if you're the CEO of the company, is you have three people you care about, right? Your customers, your employees, and your shareholders. And if you're not doing something to better all three of those with knowledge that you possibly might be bankrupt, then that's a big deal, right? So, and not only that, it's a 30-year-old company. It's been trading publicly since 2007. So, you think all of a sudden they're filing, they're going to get into shady stuff? Like all of a sudden they got into shady stuff? Anyway, so we'll see what happens there. But I was looking at later strikes on Riley. I'll just hold what I have for now. And then if it breaks that 25 handle, I put that on the watch list this morning. That's a big spot. It breaks 25. I think it's off to the races. There's people posting, you search around FinTwit on the rates that people are getting for their shares to borrow on the shorts. It's like 25%. So if you're holding shares short and you're paying that, and you've paid dividends, because Riley was paying dividends, so if you're short stock, you got to cover that dividend. It's a big deal. Riley, if they're smart and there's no improprieties, no issues, they should do a quick offering and then just do a special divvy. That'll destroy all the shorts. But that's rants for other days. I'm trying to see some other stuff here. Hopefully we don't get a big fade here to the end of the day. It looks like we're going to break into the 518s in a second. So we're off almost $4 from the highs. TLT is still going up though. Oil's rallying. Okay, so maybe that's some of it. And let's see what the dollar's doing. Yeah, well, anyway, that's my rant for today. Let's hopefully have a good day. I'm just seeing here. Last but not least is DELL. And, I locked some more of my DELL strikes in all the way up. It hit 136. The stock was 115 on Tuesday. So just remarkable reversal. Thankfully, I didn't close those strikes when it hit 115. And, now you have Barron's came out this afternoon saying DELL stock surges to record as AI server demand soars, as if they just announced AI server demand soared, right? No, they didn't. And that's why timing is important, because you could have loaded calls at the earnings high at 131 and then watch it dip all the way back down into the under 110, and then it rallies all the way up to 131, and then Barron's is coming out and saying, we told you so. AI demand is soaring. That's why DELL is soaring, but that's old news. So anyway, so I'll continue to hold the last of the 130s. I'm probably not going to add anything just yet. If it dips back into the 120s and premiums start to evaporate on some of the later dated strikes, I might look for the 150s or so, because I have to think at some point DELL's it's not going to do an SMCI move, not anywhere close, but I can see it going up another 20-30%. And I think someone posted somewhere that DELL has gained more in 5 years than Apple has over the last 5 years. But that's not saying too much, because Apple has been obviously quite a gainer over the last couple decades, but still impressive nonetheless. So I think that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be on audio tomorrow. Rock and roll.